I will speak today to you about digital transformation in the sphere of arbitration. And I will talk about, there'll be two parts in my presentation. First, in general, the current transformation that took place in the sphere of arbitration in terms of digital means, and then I will try to speculate as to what will be the future of arbitration after COVID in terms of digital transformation. So for those of you who are less familiar with arbitration, it is, as JJ said, an alternative mode of dispute resolution, alternative to state courts. It has particularly developed in international contracts. So if you had a case such as the one on the slide, and you do not have to read it in detail, complex dispute with parties from several continents, arbitrators from several continents, and counsel as well spread around the world, you would think that arbitration is a perfect candidate for digitalization. And you would think that we've done it already years ago. But that is not exactly so. Until very recently, in an arbitration, you had at least once in an arbitration a hearing that took place, and all these people from all these continents had to come to London, Paris, Washington, DC, and so forth, and were sitting in one big room, as you see on a screen, something that would be unheard of today in view of the pandemic. And very rarely for big hearings, very rarely people raise the idea that this could be done online. Paper as well was used. So when you had people spread around the world, complex case, people were sending emails, but were also big submissions were sent by mail. And some offices looked like you see on the screen. This is not my office, just to clarify, but this is I got it from the internet. But paper was still quite present in arbitration. But yet digital transformation in arbitration started already before COVID. And I will present 6 pillars of this digital transformation, and I will speak about it from my perspective, which is mainly, I work mainly on ICC cases, so cases administered by the ICC, International Chamber of Commerce Court of Arbitration, seated in Paris. When I started working for the ICC, first back in 2007, emails already existed, video conferences already existed, and yet communication of ICC with users was by fax and by letters. Email was rarely used. Then it changed, in the next years, but that was 2007. We're not talking about 80s. Internal meetings of ICC staff were all in person, where we all had to discuss cases, at ICC staff meets to discuss all cases to make sure that the decisions are consistent. And these meetings took place in person, and everybody had to bring a pile of papers, everything that had to be discussed. So these piles were a lot of paper was used. ICC court is a body that has to take certain decisions, such as, for instance, whether to confirm an arbitrator or decide on a challenge. These sessions were traditionally held in person. Exceptionally, somebody would connect by telephone for a case. This changed, however, the moment ICC opened its first overseas office in Hong Kong, followed by other offices in New York, in Singapore, and in Sao Paulo. And the evolution of ICC arbitration and the fact that ICC court opened offices all over the world changed the way the ICC court met. And video, already as of 2010, was introduced, and most ICC court sessions were conducted in the hybrid form. Some people were in Paris and some were somewhere else. In general, in ICC cases, for many years, merits hearings or oral hearings were conducted traditionally in person, physically. And it was very rare that somebody would, as I said, bring up this idea, why don't we do it by video? It did happen sometimes that, for instance, if a witness was not, just hold my screen will up, just bear with me. Up. I think it should be working. Sorry, it happens sometimes that, for instance, a witness couldn't come to the hearing because of an illness or visa problems. And then often parties would agree, why don't we just hear this one witness by video? But often the representative of the other party would go and be with the witness. So it was just really exceptional. Procedural meetings, such as case management conference, for years right now took place by telephone or video. So that is also encouraged by the ICC in its rules. In ICC arbitration, it's not only about case management. ICC organizes a lot of seminars and conferences. These traditionally took place physically. But ICC Commission, which analyzes the work of the court and to provide users with guidelines and feedback, ICC Commission for years has now talked about information technology in international arbitration and encouraged the parties to consider new available techniques in conducting arbitration. So what has changed in international arbitration since COVID? Well, arbitration hearings right now all look like this. You have a screen, sometimes you have dozens of people. In big exit cases, you can have more than 50 participants at a time, but a traditional case, you have just 10 maximum people on the screen. We had to adjust as well our offices. So in order to be able to have a hearing from home, you need to have at least 3 screens in order to look at the hearing bundle, in order to look at, see everybody's faces and to communicate with your team. So you need to be properly equipped. And this is a photo from a colleague of mine, Professor Saiz, who shared with me the photo of her own desk that she rearranged like this. So digital transformations took place already at home. I told you that ICC organizes conferences. Traditionally, ICC in April organizes its European conference in Paris. You have a big, beautiful room. People sit in this room quite close to each other. And of course, this year, this is how it looked like. It was online. And in the beginning, we were all sort of skeptical how it will work, but actually it worked super, super well. And there's a possible interaction and it works very, very well. So let me speculate about the future of arbitration. Will the digital transformation that was strengthened in the last months with the pandemic, will it last? And I have signaled four possible, again, pillars of this transformation for the future. The first point will be whether there will be more remote online hearings and meetings. There are several challenges that we have to deal with when organizing these remote hearings. And for instance, time zones is an important issue. If you have party who is in one party in Brazil, one in Paris, and another one in Asia, it's a challenge to find time during 24 hours where everybody's available. So that is a challenge. And so hearing dates are shorter, and then you need more days to have a hearing. We have seen that there are technical disparities. Not everybody has all this equipment. Not everybody has appropriate broadband. And so tribunals, when organizing remote hearings, have to address the technical requirements early on in order to make sure that everybody can participate. For that, often tribunals, it is now regular that in an arbitration prior to the actual hearing online, you have testing in order to avoid surprises. In recent months, we had to deal as well in Hannefeld as well, because we often act as arbitrators with objections to remote hearings. Some parties are used to the physical setting and so said that the online form deprives them of the real opportunity to present the case. But most practitioners, arbitral institutions have recognized that the remote form is appropriate and allows the parties to be actually heard, seen and heard, as you just hear and see me right now. Remote hearings also may lead to the reduction of time and cost. In terms of time, because arbitrators don't travel as much as they did in the past, they are much more available. So that can be actually save a lot of time, and it may be easier to schedule a hearing quickly. The same for parties counsel. And in terms of costs, unless you use very sophisticated providers such as Opus or Spark, you can just use Zoom and it may not be as costly as that. So it may lead to reduction of cost in an arbitration. In terms of, I noted about the diversity. Currently, for many years now, we complain that in arbitration, there's a problem of diversity, in particular with respect to arbitrator appointments, not enough women and not enough ethnical diversity. It has been suggested that the fact that we are now living in a sort of virtual world, there are no borders, means that maybe there will be more diversity in terms of arbitrator appointments, in terms of party representation. Maybe the party will think, well, I might try to get somebody from far away if there are no specific local issues to deal with. Choice of institutions as well. Maybe I know that already right now, for instance, some European parties consider that some European institutions are too expensive or too formalistic and go to Asia, for instance, without having any link to Asia. So perhaps more diversity with respect to the choice of institutions. And two more pillars in terms of teaching, conferences and seminars. This has changed completely in the sphere of international arbitration. All arbitral events like this one are held online. There is a challenge, I think, for students. Teaching is done online as well. I taught a little bit online as well. I find it a little bit, well, it's a challenge. I think the contact with the students is not the same. And I think for the students, it's also not as great as being in the same class with everybody, where interaction is probably better. So I think it's a challenge for students, and I admire students who continue to interact on the platform and try to take the most of it. Remember, in the beginning of my presentation, I showed you a pile of, a desk with piles of documents. Obviously, right now with the COVID in international arbitration, institutions and arbitral tribunals discourage the parties from exchanging paper documents. So on a long term, and so everybody gets used to it. Some people realize that maybe they don't need to receive so many submissions on paper. So maybe this will lead to arbitrations being greener. And I have put on the slide, there is an initiative that was put in place several years ago by Lucy Greenwood, maybe not seven, maybe it was made early this year, I think maybe last year. Lucy Greenwood, who has put in place a greener arbitration pledge, where practitioners from the sphere of international arbitration are encouraged to reduce the use of paper in their work. So I would speculate that the future of arbitration is that it will be much more digitalized and environmental friendly. Thank you very much.